What do an agronomist, a civil engineer, and a business executive have in common? They all have to grapple with questions relating to how their actions, both in their families, as citizens, or as professionals, affect the well-being of other people. They also all took at least one sociology class in college that helped them answer these questions. I promise you that you will find the same value in this course. In this video today, I share with you why sociological thinking is so important, whether we go on to work as sociologists or, like most of you, do something entirely different. I hope that this video will whet your appetite for the weeks to come and look at sociology as something that isn't just a requirement, but actually something you'll enjoy and will be able to use in your professional and everyday lives. Today, I focus on sociology in general. Next week, we'll discuss what distinguishes rural sociology as a distinct discipline. But whether we study rural or urban society or anything in between, the fundamental sociological thinking is the same. At its core, sociology is concerned with how people's individual lives are tied to that of others, in particular to dynamics at a collective level that isn't easily perceivable from any one individual viewpoint. We might find ourselves without a job one day, but without looking at larger dynamics such as globalization or capitalism, we will forever blame ourselves for our situation that in reality is in large parts beyond our control. That doesn't mean that individuals are helpless or powerless. In fact, sociology also studies how people organize their lives within circumstances that curtail them in their aspirations. Sociology also looks at how individuals can influence the circumstances around them. But the fact remains that without a particular way of thinking, sociological thinking, our understanding of our situation will forever be one-sided. The sociologist Dorothy Smith talks about the extended social relations, that is, relations that people are wound up in but that transcend their individual perception. She argues that the task of sociology is to make people aware of just these extended social relations. C. Wright Mills, another famous sociologist, coined the term sociological imagination for the thought process that traces the relationships between the self and society. I assigned you the introduction to his book, The Sociological Imagination, in which he defines and describes this very concept. At its core, the sociological imagination means to use observation and reason to draw a connection between personal experience and those relations that go beyond it. Sociology operates from the assumption that history and societal forces are directly linked to personal biography and experience. In many ways, it is an affront to classical liberalism and the idea that every person is the architect of their own fortune. Sociologists, as well as other observers of society, have found over and over again that this idea is simply not true, something that billions of working class people, people of color, and women can attest to. If you are successful as a white man in America, or Germany where I'm from, you are successful because of your hard work and dedication, but also because society has been built to give you and people like you a head start. And if you're a black working class woman, on the other hand, you have a much steeper mountain to climb, regardless of how much effort you put in. So are we really the architects of our own fortune if we are either building on the foundations that others have built for us, or if we have to first tear down the walls that keep some people from playing on a level playing field? To understand how these foundations and walls are constructed and how they enable or impede people from realizing their ambitions, that is the essence of sociology. Now let's look at our three characters that I introduced in the beginning of this lecture. Anna the agronomist, Ernie the civil engineer, and Betty the business executive. Anna used to work for a seed company, selling highly productive hybrid corn to growers in her home Lancaster County. She did this job for a decade or so and realized that her sales were increasing every year, but the number of farms she was selling to actually declined. She understood that the seed she was selling was highly profitable for farmers who could spread it over many acres, but many smaller farmers couldn't compete with them. When her brother closed down their family farm, she quit. Now she works for Penn State Extension, advising farmers to diversify their crops. She's convinced that this will help smaller producers to stay afloat. Her college class in rural sociology helped her to draw the connections between selling hybrid corn, the livelihood of small family farms, and the prospects of diversifying farm production. Let's move on to Ernie, the civil engineer. Ernie is working for a hydropower company. His job is to ensure that there is a steady flow of water running through the turbines of his dam. But he also has to adjust the water levels behind the dam so the surrounding farmers can irrigate their fields. There are also concerns that many fish species are no longer able to migrate upstream because of the dam. As a consequence, many tourists who like to catch these fish no longer come to the area. Ernie now finds himself on a committee in which he has to negotiate these different interests. He'd much rather sit in the control room of the dam than talking to people, but his foundational class in rural sociology helped him to appreciate the connection between tactical interventions in the environment and the livelihood of people, and the need to find just solutions in which not one group disproportionately benefits on the expense of another. Finally, there's Betty, the business executive. Betty runs a company that produces safety equipment for forest workers. She often faces comments about her competency just because she's a woman in a male-dominated industry. For a long time, she even questioned her competence herself, despite her apparent success. When she heard from other businesswomen that they too were experiencing the same inferiority complex or imposter complex, she had enough of it. She understood that her experience is tied to the pervasive discrimination of women that she thought she was immune from as a successful business owner. But she wasn't. She founded an organization to support women in leadership positions. Betty has no illusion that her organization won't be able to overcome global patriarchy. But realizing that the comments she experienced and the extra hours of work she put in for childcare were something that was a result of an injustice beyond her control helped to no longer chastise herself. Of course, neither Anna, Ernie, nor Betty have developed their wits exclusively by taking a rural sociology class in college. All three are astute observers with a developed sense for justice. Indeed, academically trained sociologists don't have a monopoly on the sociological imagination. But having been exposed to rural sociology helped Anna, Ernie, and Betty to put their experiences into words and understand it in ways they wouldn't have been able to otherwise. These three examples, the fate of small farmers and rural communities in a globalizing agriculture economy, the environmental equity of natural resource development, and discrimination based on gender, are only three examples that sociology deals with and that we will revisit over the course of the semester. Okay, it should have become clear by now with what kind of questions we are concerned with in sociology. But how exactly can sociology help us to understand them? I think of sociology as a particular way of thinking that is available to all, not just social scientists and other academics. It is a thinking that helps to draw together different perspectives and different skills, life near and far. It is also a thinking that challenges everyday events and relations to judgments of social justice. It scrutinizes the outcomes of actions, innovations, interventions, and policy for their impacts on different populations. If you ever find yourself wondering how a certain action that you are about to execute or that you observe affects not only you, not only people like you, but also people that are markedly different from you, then you are thinking sociologically, and I consider this class a success. At its best, sociology is therefore a compassionate discipline that seeks to advance justice and a good life for all. At its worst, sociology supports policies that guarantee the privileges of elites. As with everything, it is up to you how you are using your sociological imagination. As an academic discipline, sociology has developed a number of methods that require training. In this class, you will try out a number of them, such as qualitative interviewing, survey data analysis, or autoethnography. These are techniques that are not easily available to people that go about their lives and their responsibilities and that don't have necessarily the time to develop these skills. Even in this class, we can only survey them superficially. You have to take more classes and go to graduate school in sociology in order to master any of these methods. But I believe that by just taking this one class, you can learn to think sociologically, and I hope that you take this critical thinking with you wherever you go once you pass this class. Sociology has also produced a large body of theory. Now, social theory is a mixed bag. There are a number of sociological theories that are extremely useful in understanding the world, that are based on sound reasoning and empirical observation, and you will learn some of these theories in class. At the same time, for pretty much every theory you will find a counter-theory and counter-evidence, if not from sociology, then from a different discipline, such as economics or biology. And that is just fine. The world is just too complex for any one theory to explain it all. So whenever I, or anyone else, presents you with a sociological theory, a fact even, I I want you to question it, scrutinize it, and come to your own conclusion whether you agree or not. For sociological thinking is critical thinking that cuts through the unsaid and the assumed. The same applies to what you hold as true yourself. Think twice. I used to think I couldn't hold racist or sexist ideas because I considered myself an anti-racist and feminist activist. Now I understand that racism and sexism are systemic to our society and I'm not immune from it. To unlearn these ideas is work that I have to do every day. It requires that I question my own assumptions and hold them to the same standard than any other sociological inquiry. When you start to subject what others are saying and what you believe yourself to a critical analysis of both its validity and its differential impacts on different people, you start to think sociologically. All this critical thinking and questioning doesn't mean that nothing is true or valid. As I said, there are certain theories that have a profound empirical and logical basis. For example, Karl Marx distinguished people in industrialized societies into the classes of capitalists and workers, people that own the means to produce things, including those things we need for our daily survival, such as food and shelter, and people that don't own these means of productions. This simple observation is as true today as it was 150 years ago, when Marx published his influential work Das Kapital. But do we have to think in these terms? Certainly not. For example, many feminists criticize that his framework didn't account for the unpaid labor of many women. We could also de-emphasize the importance of what people own and focus more on what people identify with, such as their gender or racial or sexual identity. In summary, theories can be very useful as we try to understand how our lives are situated within larger contexts, but they're not sacrosanct. So when I present you with social theory during this class, I want you to take notes and seriously consider their usefulness, but don't treat them as facts that you need to memorize and internalize, like you would treat the laws of thermodynamics in your physics class. Sociology encourages a lot of ambiguity and critical discourse, and sociological thinking means to become comfortable with this ambiguity, while at the same time striving for clarity. Alright, we now covered the essence of sociological thinking, the merit of sociological methods, and the ambiguity of sociological theory. Now I want you to think about the following question, the question of the week. How can sociological thinking help you answer a question that you have about your life? You might want to pause this video as you think through your answer. Post your response in the comments of this video as well as any other comments or questions that you might be having. Alright, let's sum up what we've covered today. Sociological thinking means to seek an understanding of how individual experiences and dynamics outside of our individual perception are interrelated. C. Wright Mills called this thought process the sociological imagination. In particular, sociology has developed a range of methods to study how certain actions or policies affect people in all their diversity, and it uncovers where one group dominates another. Sociology is thus fundamentally oriented towards social justice. Sociology has also produced a large body of theory that helps us to understand the world, but this theory is under constant development and reappraisal. Sociological thinking applies critical thinking to use reason and empirical observation to come to our own substantiated conclusions about our own lives and that of others within society. I look forward to introduce you to this type of thinking. Welcome to Rural Sociology 11. Alright, and that's it for today. Thank you for watching, and if you haven't done so, subscribe to this YouTube channel so you get all future lectures right into your stream. Of course, I keep posting these videos on Canvas too, so you can watch them there, if you don't have an account to subscribe to YouTube. Also, I'd love to read your comments, questions, or anything else you'd like to share. As I said earlier, I assigned the intro to C. Wright Mills' Sociological Imagination, so make sure you read it before your class on Thursday. There's also a short quiz in Canvas related to this lecture and the reading that you need to take. With this all out of the way, I'm looking forward to meeting you all on Thursday. Have a good week until then.